Hey everyone, this is Andy, better known as Love Retro BTW on Twitter X, Threads, IG, and Cafe BTW on TikTok and YouTube. A quick update that the Cafe BTW podcast is taking a very long hiatus, but I still have something really amazing to share with you. We have a fantastic retro gaming community on Twitter X where we've crossed well over 2,000 passionate members. And if you're a lover of retro gaming, this is the perfect place to share your content, showcase your pickups, or just chat about your favorite old school games. To dive into nostalgia and become a part of the thriving community, click in the show notes on the Cafe BTW link tree or go right to my Twitter X profile on Love Retro BTW. And now, without further ado, gear up for another sensational episode of the Gamers Week podcast.
This time on Gamers Week podcast. Why do you even have to mention Pong? Is that because nobody really knows what Quomp was?
Yeah, because nobody wants to play Quomp 2. But if you say Pong is getting a sequel, then all the gaming outlets pick it up and go, ooh. And then shows like us read the headline and go, ooh, Pong's getting a sequel. We must speak of it.
I was just about to say that, like we're doing.
Yep, like we're doing.
So I was thinking about last week's question about who is your video game spirit animal.
How do you have a better answer now?
I have a better answer because last week it was just a really quick, I couldn't think of anything. But I think one that personifies me, and this took some time to think about, is the long piece from Tetris.
Okay.
You're always glad to see it.
Yes.
And whenever it sure makes you happy.
Can I use
I love this answer, but I don't know if I can use it.
Let's go to the judges. Phil?
I'm real on the fence. I'll figure it out.
All right. Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 88. Eric Lindros! Today is Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. My name is Donnie G. Retro, and I will be your host this evening. But I am not alone. I'm never, ever alone.
Always feel like
somebody's watching me. Where was I at?
I am with me.
Spaced out there for a second, man. I have with me, as always, my two gracious co-hosts. With the start of the upcoming NFL season, my first co-host is a masochist. Why, you ask? Because he continues to root for the Buffalo Bills. We have Mr. Retro Game Bruce, Mr. Ryan Payne, and I think he might have just logged off with that comment. Ryan, are you still there?
No, I'm ready to tell you, yeah, well, good luck extending that, Yoshi.
He's the one who said it. Why are you making me do more work?
You were agreeing with him. I could hear
nothing. I said nothing.
My second co-host, her quarterback just left her high and dry to go to New York, and now they got a new guy in town who she's trying to learn to love.
I understood that reference.
You see that? You see what I did there? We have with us Writer's View, a.k.a. Blue. Blue, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, there's a lot of holes in the ship. We're just going to paddle real fast to the end of the season.
It's like it's made out of cheese or something.
And everybody who tuned in expecting a video game podcast has already turned it off. So
go sports, man.
We're peaking early.
So let's take a look at our reviews, reactions, and requests this evening. At Arcade Main says, I am that weirdo niche collector who wants the new Atari for easy plug and play into a modern TV. It's not that different from analog consoles.
So you're not alone, Ryan. Look at that.
I am not alone.
There's literally dozens of you.
Dozens.
At Holy Headshot says there's a big Steam Deck community online. The sales numbers aren't representative of its popularity, nor do I think it's fair to expect that it'll eclipse Switch sales numbers in its first iteration. It's awesome. It actually played Hogwarts better than my PC at launch.
You know, a fair number of people actually kind of replied like that, thinking we were dissing on the Steam Deck, which we were not. I think the Steam Deck sounds awesome. I don't have one because I'm poor, but I can't for the life of me figure out why it's not selling better. The only thing that I can think of is that the PC master race in general couldn't bear to sully their pretty hands with something handheld. That's the best explanation I got.
Forever unclean.
Pretty much.
At Games with Coffee says, I have a use case for the PlayStation Portal. Playing games on a PS5 isn't super viable for me as the games I want to play aren't friendly to kids. So if I want to play Final Fantasy 16 or Baldur's Gate without the questions I would get about getting intimate with a bear, well, the Portal will have to be my go-to in that regard.
Daddy, what's going on with that bear?
I will say this about the people who react to what we say on the show. You guys do it very professionally. You guys come back and you actually have a viable thought that we can talk about and bounce our ideas off of. So that's the kudos to you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that makes us a better podcast and people come back and provide us with additional context for things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and those who don't reply that way never make the cut onto the show. So. And now it's time for the...
If you don't mind, you fill in the names. That'll make it even more official.
You think of everything, don't you?
And the names are Ryan, Donnie, and Blue of Gamers Week podcast.
Why my name, Rick?
Casablanca?
Because you're getting on that podcast.
But I don't understand. What about you?
I'm staying here till the podcast gets safely away.
No, Rick, what's happened to you? Last night we said...
Last night we said a good many things. You said I was to do the voting for both of us. Well, the very important poll is posted since then, and it all adds up to one thing. You're getting on that podcast with Ryan and Donnie where you belong. Now you've got to listen to me. Do you have any idea what you'd have to look forward to if you stay here? 9 chances out of 10, we both land a game tester gig playing that one Kim Kardashian mobile game for 18 hours per day.
You're only saying this to make me go.
I'm saying it because it's true. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Gamers Week. If the very important poll closes tomorrow and you haven't voted yet, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And for the rest of your life.
I said that I would never leave you.
And you never will. I got to come up with a vote, too. And the way I'm voting, you can't copy my answer. And no good at being noble blue, but it doesn't take much to see that the votes of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy poll. Someday you'll understand that. Now. He's looking at you, kid.
Wow. Well done.
Very nice.
Bringing in the classic.
Yeah, I thought it was a risk because I was like, how many people these days have actually seen Casablanca?
I have not.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know if I should do it, but it's too perfect. I got to do it.
He's looking at you, kid.
I've actually been to Casablanca, Morocco, and there are no less than 500 Rick's Cafes all over the city.
Oh, I'm sure. Do they all play as time goes by, every single one?
No, I was told specifically not to go to them. They're tourist traps. They overcharge you. It's crap, you know.
Oh.
I was like, all right.
Is it a Rick Darris cafe?
All right. Every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP. That is our very important poll. And if you'd like to participate, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. So the question this week, what is your biggest pet peeve type of gamer? Coming in third place, we have online potty mouths at 18.1%. Coming in second place, we have Rage Quitters at 23.6%. And the winner is Teabaggers/Trolls at 40.9%. But we also had 17.3% of people vote other. So let's look at some of the comments from the poll. At MB the Great One said, people who fail to understand that only some have the time or ability to be great at a game they, the person with all the time, can play 24/7. At Graphics Gear says, armchair developers that insist they know how simple it is to just fix all the problems in a game when they have never worked in the industry. At Wingy Wingy says, those male gamers that think females can't play games. I hate being laughed at in online games. At Erebus Maligan said, as an avid World of Warcraft player, people who don't respect other players' time, leaving a dungeon for arbitrary reasons, making the other people unable to finish and having wasted 20 minutes, and people who sign up for group activities and then decide to take breaks, making others wait. And at EmoS said, elitists and snobs. I was not brave enough to say retro enthusiasts.
Hey!
Emo, I want you to know that Ryan sold you out and asked specifically for this comment to be included.
And you sold me out.
One good sellout deserves another. So, how did you guys vote in the poll, Ryan?
So I think these are all really great examples. Even look at the other sections of there, you know, the people who don't recognize that it takes time to become really good at a game, and not all of us have time. The idea that people bag on female gamers, that whole thing. Online potty mouths. I guess I don't care as much about that one.
Right?
Because, yeah, you know. But Rage Quitters, I think I find more funny than anything else. And Teabaggers and Trolls, I get that that's annoying. But the people to me that annoy me are specifically people who get into like an online match. Like say you're doing like a first-person shooter or whatever. And they specifically go in there to just do nothing. So, for example, if you're playing like a 4-on-4 Halo tournament and it's just a guy who's spending all of his time shooting up at the air rather than doing anything else. And it's like, I don't have a whole lot of time during my day to play this stuff. I don't want to have like a handicap to play because you're bored and all you want to do is shoot into this guy. So I just always never understood that. And it ruins the game because you're instantly going to lose because those people die all the time. Everybody just shoots them. So it's really like a 3-on-4. You're handicapped because some asshole, basically. So
what's that purpose though? Like
it's the troll thing, right? Like, oh, look at me, I'm not doing anything. There's a thing in Splatoon 2 as well. It's called a squid party, where people will just go into the middle of the map and then just jump up and down while everyone else plays. I despise that. I have responsibilities and I can't spend all day gaming. So thank you for ruining it for me. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
All right. What about you, Donnie?
I've rage quit. I'm guilty. If something's just not going my way, it's like I can't get into a rhythm. I have quit before, especially if somebody's like made a comment and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm out. I feel like I am a little bit of a potty mouth sometimes, especially playing a first-person shooter online. That kind of accompanies the rage quitting thing. The teabaggers and the trolls, they're going to be there. I don't necessarily mind that too much because you can just kind of ignore the teabaggers. You know, if you don't want to get teabagged, just get better at the game, I guess.
Get good, scrub.
But the thing that kind of bothers me are whiners and complainers. And this is all encompassing. This doesn't matter if you're playing a game like Dead by Daylight and you're like, oh, well, you're just camping or you're tunneling or, oh, nice flashlights. Oh, you guys are just ganging up on me. And shut up. If the game didn't want me to tunnel, guess what? It would penalize me for it, which they kind of do with points. If the game didn't want me to camp the hook, it would penalize me for it, which it does by reducing your points. When people used to complain about campers and snipers in Call of Duty games, like if you're playing a map and somebody's holed up in a position and they're just picking people off one by one. Oh, camper, effing camper, effing camper. Why don't you come out of your hiding spot? No, I'm a sniper. I'm supposed to pick a spot, fortify my position, and pick people off. That's the whole idea. Your job is to come in and get me out of that position. And if you can't, well, get good.
It's the same people who complain that, oh man, Call of Duty's not really like realistic enough.
Right.
Well, in real war, nobody just runs at each other. Hey, I'm going to shoot you.
Well, I mean, in their defense, that is how they used to make war.
Yeah, where you would just line up.
Like back in colonial days, you just line up and shoot at each other. So
Yeah, and if you want realism, that's not me dumping a full round of LMG ammo into your chest while you're able to still run at me and butt stroke me in the nose and down me. That's not real, okay?
Bullets made of gummy bears?
Gummy bears. Blue, what about you? What's your biggest pet peeve?
well, this poll was very interesting to me because even though teabaggers/trolls won, so much of it seemed to be in defense of teabagging, which I thought that's a very interesting approach to things. Because, like you said, Donnie, if you don't like the teabaggers, just get good. Okay, I voted teabaggers and trolls. I hate them. It says nothing about me or my skills of the game, but it says everything about you. You have already won. Have a little class about it. You know, we're all just here to have fun and play a game.
Literally.
So I don't know, maybe act like you've been there before and get on with the game of continuing to win, you bag.
So there is somebody I play Call of Duty with. He is known for, like, if we kill somebody, he goes in and he starts teabagging. He's like, yeah. And you know what happens about 9 times out of 10?
He gets shot.
He gets shot and he gets down.
Karma, bitch. You're right. You can't ignore the teabaggers, just like you can ignore any of these people we've been complaining about. But everybody has that thing that gets at them. And poor winners and poor losers fit into this category. That's who bothers me.
And you don't even play first-person shooters.
There's a reason I hate people.
All right, let's take a look at our patron shoutouts.
But we couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. Steven San, Ramboski, Terry Canair, Doongie Forever, Ludo Timbo, Ducks in Disguise, Don't Make Me Pull Over This Car, Games of Coffee, Hybrid Divide, Matto, 1606, You Fall Before Me, Davey PGH, The Red Ox PBX family, including Shanna and Luke, Shalazeel, Zach Hugethank, #1 Blue Sick Voice fan, Sassy Sony, Evo Lust, Princess Kitty Mew Mew, Rai Rai's Secret Best Friend, Mega Retroman, Gamatroid, Michael LeKite, Emo S, Bill Tucker, The Real Retro Game Brews, Fruitcake's #1 Stan, Ducks with Thick Thighs. Who is this Rebecca character anyway? Donnie and Ryan are my new favorite power couple. Alpha Kenny Buddy.
Thank you for that.
Wizard of Zardoz, Bobson Dugnut, Retroblast Pat, Great Saiyaman 81, BNT Zilla Guy, Geek With That, Johnny Boombots, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, Frank Grande, and Love Retro BTW. If you would like what you hear today, and we really hope that you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the costs of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing like prizes and giveaways. We'll also gain access to our weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut. Patrons with benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks, Alpha. Now let's prepare to go to our headlines.
Why are you preparing?
Just go.
Our headlines segment is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. This week, the guys want to know, what do you think are the best Game Gear games? Send your answers to email at retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes. And I gotta say, I don't have a lot of familiarity with the entire Sega Game Gear library.
Yeah, I have had almost next to no time with the Game Gear. Didn't have one when I was growing up. So I'll turn it over to the resident rich kid on the podcast.
Sorry.
Bless you.
So the 3 that stick out to me that I played all the time as a kid was Axe Battler, Choplifter, and Rystar. Those are like the 3 big ones. But the Game Gear has a lot of really good stuff on it, even some RPGs and some great Sonic games. So this list could be really, really long. I know that it's not a lot of people are familiar with it, and that it doesn't get a whole lot of clout in, compared to like the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance. But there's a lot of good stuff. Because I mean, if you think about it, Game Gear was essentially a portable master system. So sound was great, colors were great, battery life, meh.
I was going to say, my God, how many batteries would it take you to play through an RPG?
All the batteries is the answer.
All right, first up tonight from Games Radar, Epic Games is now offering devs a 100% revenue split for launching their game on the company's store. Epic Games has launched a new program that will allow developers to keep 100% of their net revenues when launching games on the platform. As introduced in a blog post, Epic Games has now launched the Epic First Run program, which is an opt-in exclusivity program for third-party developers. Outside of the program, developers gain 88% of their revenue, with Epic taking a 12% cut. Inside the program, however, as long as developers make their games exclusive to the platform for the first 6 months, they'll get 100%. After the 6 months is up, they'll go back to earning that 88% in revenue. Alongside this additional revenue, developers will get a range of other benefits too, including having their games presented to those users on store with new exclusive badging, homepage placements, and dedicated collections. As well as this, Epic First Run games will also be featured in relevant store campaigns, including sales events and editorial, and will benefit from continued exposure throughout its time on the program. As for who's eligible, the new program is open to publishers and developers of any scale, as long as they have a registered Epic Games developer account and their upcoming title is set to launch on or after October 16, 2023. The title in question also has to be eligible to take part in the program, which means it must be a new release that has not been released on a different third-party PC platform or been included in a subscription service, i.e. Xbox Game Pass. This is great news for developers who are looking to get a bit more revenue out of the games they launch. It doesn't change much for players, but what this does mean is that some upcoming PC games could be limited to the Epic Games Store instead of Steam or the Microsoft Store, for example, for the first 6 months of their life. Well, I did a little bit of digging before the show on this because I was curious. And according to a site called Backlinko, Epic Games has 31.3 million monthly active users, but Steam has 120 million monthly active users, so roughly 4 times as many. So what I'm thinking is that this is Epic's attempt to try to get some of those users away from Steam for themselves.
Right. This sounds to me. So I don't know if you remember back in the day, there was like Sprint, Nextel, there was T-Mobile, there was AT&T, and there was Verizon for cell phone carriers. Mm-hmm. And at one point, Sprint, Nextel, you could get like everything free from them. They were trying so hard to grab market share because they were just bleeding money left and right. And they're like, just come to us. We promise. Eventually we'll be able to make money. I swear. And yeah, that didn't turn out so well for them. So it's interesting. This seems to me that maybe this is a sign, because companies that are doing really well don't give away all of their profits to somebody for 6 months. To me, from like a business perspective, this just looks interesting.
So I'm an optimist by nature. And maybe, just maybe, Epic Games is starting to say, you know what? We think that developers should be treated better than what they are now. The stuff that they get, or the stuff that they're giving to people, that they're making for people, they should totally see a lot of the revenue share with it. We are just a platform for them to be able to get their items out. I mean, granted, within 6 months, we'll still start seeing profits from those games that they're selling, even if it's a popular one.
You know, you might be an optimist by nature, but I am naughty by nature.
Hip hop, hooray! Oh, hey.
So if that's the case, if they're like, hey, let's bring developers in, let's get them to be a part of our platform. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to bet then that your average game doesn't get popular or doesn't explode until 6 months on average.
That's not a terrible theory. Like, let's take a game like Vampire Survivors. When it first released, I'm not sure anybody really knew what it was. And it kind of slowly steamrolled up. By the time it was starting to make money, even though that game in particular was only like $5. So not a great example, but you get the idea. And PS for the records, Forbes has Epic listed at $3.3 billion for 2021 and $3.8 billion for 2022. So they are growing, it seems.
They're growers, not showers?
So let's say you're a developer and you see that this program is available on Epic.
Mm-hmm.
You have a potential to get 12% more from every sale.
Mhm.
However, if you went to Steam, you could conceivably get your game in front of the eyes of 4 times as many people.
Right.
So how does that math work out?
It's fuzzy.
It's fuzzy.
I hate fuzzy math. I don't know what more Epic could offer developers instead of, okay, we won't take the 12%. You can have it all and we'll do all this extra marketing for you on the homepage and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sure the extra 12% is really worth not going on Steam.
Right. Not getting in front of the bigger audience, for sure.
Right, yeah.
Developers are like, wow, you'll do all this for us? No, we won't.
Epic is sitting there with their heart in their hands, holding it out to the developers. Then the developers are like, no.
It's the John Cusack standing out in front with the boombox.
Yep.
Next up from IGN, Sonic team head, pixel art won't be viable art style for Sonic games in 10 to 20 years. Sonic Superstars is shaping up to be the biggest Sonic game of the year, partly because of the new 2.5D aesthetic for classic Sonic. However, Sonic Team suggests classic Sonic's new look may be permanent, as they believe pixel art won't be viable style for Sonic in 10 to 20 years. Sonic Team creative officer and producer Takashi Iizuka said at Gamescom the Sonic Superstars is the evolution of the 2D Sonic gameplay, and doesn't believe that 2D pixel art will survive as a video game art form for the franchise within the next 2 decades. This comment effectively throws cold water at the possibility of classic Sonic fans seeing Sonic Mania 2 come to light. We look at the pixel art, it's great, but we think about 10 to 20 years in the future, and we don't think it's going to be viable art style or presentation for our players, Iizuka said. Through a translator, and in order to advance and really step things up, we need to make sure that we're presenting something that 10 to 20 years down the road, we're still evolving and creating new content for. It's important to note that Iizuka-san's comments about pixel art not being a viable gaming art style only applies to Sonic, not other games in general. Pixel art has sustained itself remarkably well in many indie games in the last decade, including 2064, Read Only Memories, Dead Cells, Freedom Planet, and more recently Sea of Stars and Octopath Traveler 2. These pixel art comments may be shocking to some Sonic fans, given the wild success Sonic Mania gained when it first released 6 years ago, selling more than 1 million copies worldwide, but as with anything, plans can change. Don't expect a Sonic Mania successor with beautiful pixel art anytime soon. We're officially old.
This article kind of took off on the internet with people, I'll say, of our age group going, rah, 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 pixel art is great. How dare he say this, kind of a thing. But I think there's a couple ways you could kind of dig into this comment.
Mm-hmm.
One, I mean, it says here that the wild success Sonic Mania gained when it first released 6 years ago, selling more than 1 million copies. Is 1 million copies really a wild success?
I mean, not for a major studio like Sega.
Yeah, and not for a major IP like Sonic either.
Right.
So I think maybe Iizuka has a point. When was the last time a AAA game was in pixel art style?
Right.
That was had to be 25 years ago. Since then, people expect much more from AAA games. And I suppose you could debate whether or not Sonic really counts as AAA anymore. But the term, he says, it won't be viable. I mean, what does viable really mean? Where games nowadays, they all have to sell a gazillion copies each, and there's so much at stake. Something that is pixel art is still the realm of small indie games that we were just talking about, like with Vampire Survivors, where they kind of start out as a nobody and then they slowly roll on and become a success later. And it's always a surprise. But for every one of those that becomes a huge success and is a surprise, there's thousands more that nobody's ever heard of. So as much as I hate it, I think he's kind of right.
I was thinking the same thing, maybe not in the same vein. My thought was that in 10 to 20 years, the people who are gaming at the time are going to have nostalgia for 2D games like Sonic.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be in our 50s and 60s. We'll probably still be playing. So that'll still be there. But the younger generation starting to get into where they have disposable income and they're not necessarily going to be interested. So it's only going to be relegated to us old fogies who still game.
I'm not going to be in my 50s, 60s. I'll be celebrating my 40th time of turning 25. So
There you go.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And he's basically saying pixel art won't be viable style for Sonic. For
Right.
Sonic alone, not for every other game that's out there, just for Sonic specifically. And help me remember, but the past couple of games that have come out for Sonic, they haven't been pixel art, have they?
no, probably the reason they specifically mentioned Sonic Mania is because that's probably the last one that was.
Right.
Well, and that's fine. That's understandable. We're not asking you to keep everything pixel art. We know that the technology is far beyond what we were used to back when pixel art was mainstream, when that was what everybody was doing on the Genesis, on the Super Nintendo, what have you. We're far from that. We expect more advanced things from our lovable characters like Mario and Sonic. Now,
Right.
if you want to get nostalgic, if you want to put out like a quick retro game or something like that with pixel art for Sonic and Mario, great. Us retro enthusiasts will take that. We'll take that. And as long as the game is decent, we'll love it.
And to your point, back when they were making pixel art Sonic and Mario games, that was the best technology of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even Nintendo doesn't use pixel art anymore. I can't remember the last time they did. About all you see as far as pixel art from Nintendo is like in Mario Maker, you have the option
Right,
to make levels in like the 8-bit or the 16-bit style. And
Mhm.
everybody goes, oh, how retro, it's cute. But it's like a fun little gimmick.
Right. It's a throwback.
Yeah, exactly.
When I look at Sonic Superstars and I see how vivid and vibrant the colors are, this way of doing things, this looks beautiful and amazing and is really 3D immersive. So yeah, I'll take the throwback every once in a while, but if you're going to continue to do games like this with Sonic Superstars, I'll take that.
And I got to be honest with you, as somebody who plays retro games, I don't necessarily play retro games because it's pixel art. I play it for the gameplay. If you stick the
course.
gameplay and it's still Sonic and it's still good, I could care less what it looks like. You know? The only thing I'm asking is just don't bring back the interspecies relationships in Sonic, and I'm good.
Yeah, hopefully they learned their lesson from that.
Oh, Sonic 06.
Next up from Destructoid, Quomp 2 is Atari's thrilling continuation of the Pong saga.
I was wondering how you were going to pronounce that.
Quomp or Qomp?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I'm glad it's not mine.
I was going with Quomp as well, so I'm with Donnie on this.
Atari has announced that they have a new entry in one of the oldest video game franchises around.
Franchise?
Yeah.
Well, I could argue that.
Okay, Professor.
Quomp 2 is an upcoming game developed by Graphite Labs and is the sequel to the short-form 2021 indie game Quomp. It's scheduled to hit PC, consoles, and mobile platforms in 2024. Quomp was a spiritual success to 1972's Pong, which is a game I probably don't need to explain. Quomp is said to be the answer to the question, what would happen if the Pong ball escaped the paddles? Well, I already know the answer to that. A point would be counted for the opposite side. It's the point of the game. If it was up to me, the ball would break out into the real world and discover that it has to get a job to afford to live. Then it would struggle with a dead-end job, bills, loneliness, and an uncaring society. It would yearn to return to the Pong playing field. Wow, that's deep.
I've never empathized so much with a Pong ball.
However, in Quomp's universe, the ball goes on an adventure through a deadly, minimalistic labyrinth. Minimalistic is pretty much the defining word here, as the challenges and movement are all based on a single button that changes the direction of the ball. It was also a short game, but it got some modest acclaim. Quamp 2 is bringing a second button to the input table. Ooh.
Fancy.
Yeah. This one is a dash, and dashes make everything better. It promises an enigmatic story of doubt, fear, and self-acceptance, told wordlessly with simple animations, effects, and the game mechanics themselves. Interestingly, though, I'm not sure if the original developers are involved. The first Quamp was a group of indie devs united by Stuffed Wombat, but the sequel is being done by frequent Atari collaborator Graphite Labs. Quamp 2 will release on PC, consoles, and mobile platforms in 2024. However, no word if it's being re-released on the Atari 2600 Plus.
Somehow I feel.
Totally will be.
It should.
Yeah, I'm sure they put Mr. Run and Jump on the 2600 Plus. They're going to put this thing on the 2600 Plus.
So this is Atari doing it. First it was, hey, we're going to re-release this console that you could pretty much pick up on Marketplace, but this time it's got an HDMI output. Now we're going to tell you a good story about Pong. We're going to release a sequel to Pong.
And I think Atari's involvement is the only way you can say that this is a sequel to Pong, because otherwise it's a sequel to Quamp, an indie game. It has almost no connection to Pong, except for Atari coming in and saying, no, we're going to make it connect to Pong because we like the marketing.
Oh, so Quamp was the success to Pong.
Spiritual successor.
Spiritual success. Why do you even have to mention Pong? Is that because nobody really knows what Quamp was?
Yeah, because nobody wants to play Quamp 2. But if you say Pong is getting a sequel, then all the gaming outlets pick it up and go, ooh. And then shows like us read the headline and go, ooh, Pong's getting a sequel. We must speak of it.
I was just about to say that, like we're doing.
Yep, like we're doing. If there was a headline that said Quamp 2 is coming and we just like keep scrolling.
Like, man, Quamp.
I got to give them kudos, though. To reimagine Pong and then re-release it for it at the same time they're coming out with the 2600 Plus and get people a reason to check out the 2600 Plus potentially. It's no confirmation that it's going to be on that, but just get people hyped about it, start thinking about it. This is actually to be a genius move. And whoever wrote this article for Destructoid, kudos to you. I feel like you've encompassed all of our feelings, but I gotta be honest, I will probably check it out on a novelty just to see what it's all about.
Anything Atari, Ryan checks out for the quote-unquote novelty. But he's a diehard enthusiast.
He drags his heels and says, who is this even for? As he's scooping them up left and right.
Hey, look over there. But it's like Pong is like that old song, like the cat came back the very next day. It just won't go away.
What song is that?
Well, then I guess I made a reference that no one's going to understand. So if that could not make the podcast, that'd be great.
If you sing it, it could make the podcast.
Right.
Okay, great. I guess I'm assured now that it won't make the podcast. Excellent.
I hope all the comments next week are saying, Ryan, please sing the song.
But you're not going to leave it in, so I don't.
You have no idea what I'm going to do.
It's just too much power. We need a coup d'etat here.
And now let's take a look at our top 3 new releases for the week.
All right, first up is Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy, out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. The Trine series is back with its biggest adventure. In their 5th outing, the heroes of Trine are pitted against dastardly and duplicitous villains who will stop at nothing to seize control of the kingdom. Traverse breathtaking 2.5D landscapes in Trine's deepest and visually richest chapter to date, with an all-new cast of characters, some friends, some foes, but all unforgettable. Whether by yourself or playing with up to 3 friends in online and local co-op, the upgraded puzzle difficulty system keeps things fresh, adapting the challenge to the number of players. Next is Sea of Stars, out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Sea of Stars is a turn-based RPG inspired by the classics. It tells the story of 2 children of the solstice who will combine the powers of the sun and moon to perform eclipse magic, the only force capable of fending off the monstrous creations of the evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer. Set in the same universe as 2018's The Messenger and featuring a score with 10 guest tracks from Yasunori Mitsuda, Sea of Stars aims to modernize the classic RPG in terms of turn-based combat, storytelling, and exploration while still offering a hearty slice of nostalgia. And finally, Samba de Amigo Party Central out on Switch. Amigo and his friends are back in Samba de Amigo Party Central. Pick up your maracas and groove to 40 hit songs from the world's most popular genres, with even more arriving as post-launch DLC. Groove with your friends and family with different party modes. Feeling confident in your skills? Complete the Stramigo challenges, see what you did there, to help Amigo rise to fame. Take the party to a global level, hit the floor with 12 amigos and up to 8 of your friends online in World Party mode, or show the world what you've got by competing on the online leaderboards. So taking a look at these 3 games this week, what are you in for, Donnie?
Let me first start off by saying I'm glad I didn't have to read the first one because duplicitous?
I was just thinking that duplicitous is a word that is not used enough in daily conversation.
No, and I would have been like, duplicitis.
No, it sounds like what my grandpa would have as an ailment. Like, oh, I got the duplicitous.
Okay, now that we got that out of the way. So Trine 5 Clockwork Conspiracy, it looks amazing. It's a puzzle platformer. I think would be right up my alley. I don't really care too much for the co-op thing. Let me play it by myself. If I can get through the whole game by myself, single player, I think I would like this one. Sea of Stars. I am not that big into role-playing games anymore, but when I take a look at this one, it immediately takes me back to the good old days of Final Fantasy III, Secret of Mana, Illusion of Gaia, all of those good things, Chrono Trigger, even though I've never really played Chrono Trigger, Breath of Fire, et cetera, et cetera. It looks amazing. And I think this is one time an RPG might be at the top of my list.
Ooh.
Samba de Amigo, it looks like it could be a fun party game. And I know I don't go to the clubs anymore, so my dance moves are a little outdated. If I needed a little pick-me-up or a refresher before I went out on a weekend night to the club to dance the night away, I would probably turn on Samba de Amigo and pick up the maracas and do a little dance and say, okay, I'm ready to go and hit the dance floor. But other than that, probably would not be checking out this game. It does look fun and entertaining, but I think my pick for this week is going to be Sea of Stars.
Whoa, man, where'd you get your moves?
I can't tell you that, man. It's a secret.
All right. What about you, Ryan?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm very disappointed that Donnie didn't pick Samba de Amigos because I think he would look really, really good in a Cuban Pete outfit. My name is Cuban Pete. I go to the chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom. But I will say I hate rhythm games, and mostly because I have no rhythm. So, yeah, that one's off the list, Samba de Amigo. I never played the original for obvious reasons as well. So, sorry, rhythm fans. This one's not for me. I think Trine 5 is a situation where this is possibly the worst time that they could release this game, knowing that Sea of Stars is coming out at the exact same time. It's like, hey, check out our cool game. And everyone's like, oh, whatever, Sea of Stars. Bye.
You fell for the oldest trick in the book.
Tron 5 looks fantastic. It looks fun. But hands down, Sea of Stars is... And by the way, for a minute there, I blacked out when Donnie said he didn't play Chrono Trigger. But supposedly, this is a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger, which... If you know me, that is my favorite game of all time. So I can't wait to buy this and get disappointed because it doesn't live up to my expectations. But I am all in for Sea of Stars.
So who is saying it's a spiritual successor?
Just people saying because it was inspired by, it feels like a spiritual successor as opposed to something the developers have actually said.
Exactly. Right. So Blue, what about you?
So this is one of those rare weeks where I would actually buy any of these. Trine 5, Trine is a series that I've had my eye on for a long time. It's one of those where, like, I know I should play it. I would probably love it, but you just never really get around to it.
Mhm.
And now they're up to 5 games. So there's quite a lot of Trine out there for me to be playing. But I love puzzle games. So that's definitely on the table. Sea of Stars, everybody's been waiting for it breathlessly. It had a demo earlier this year that was great, very well received. So yeah, I am not missing this. However, it is meant to get a physical early 2024. So
Right.
I'm probably going to wait for that. And in the meantime, maybe I'll be playing Samba de Amigo, which I don't have any rhythm either. I suck at these games, but it looks kind of fun. The only thing that might be annoying is I want to check out the song list first, because if it has a bunch of really annoying pop songs on it, I don't want to play. But if they're decent songs, this otherwise looks like it's kind of silly, colorful, fun. You know, you could have a few drinks with some friends and do some local competitions like you would do with like a Mario Party kind of thing. So yeah, I'm actually in for all 3 of these.
It's got songs like Centerfold by Jay Giles Band.
I don't know what that is.
It's a centerfold. Na, 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 na,
Okay.
Sucker by Jonas Brothers. I'm a sucker for you. Damn it. The Cup of Life by Ricky Martin. And Lowrider.
They picked the World Cup song for Samba de Amigos.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I thought about Ricky Martin.
Do you really wanna? Hey, hey, hey. Ole, ole, ole.
Interestingly, Donnie seems to know all of these songs.
Yeah, I was I'm starting to question Donnie a little bit here.
Question what? What? My love for good music?
Or just questionable music.
Right. Your love for girly pop songs.
I am who I am.
We love you just as you are.
And now we take a look at our main topic for the evening. Starfield officially launches on Wednesday, September 6th, although players with the Constellation Edition or Premium Edition upgrade can get access 5 days earlier. But even though it's not quite out yet, the headlines this week have been buzzing about Bethesda's newest RPG. So for our main topic tonight, we're looking at a roundup of Starfield headlines.
Space. It's here.
Space game.
All right, first up from BGC. Starfield leaker arrested after allegedly stealing copies of the game. A man who leaked Starfield gameplay went viral and has been arrested for allegedly stealing and attempting to sell copies of the game online. 29-year-old Darren Harris was booked by, I know that guy, no. was booked by the Shelby County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office on August 24th. He's facing felony charge for $2,500 to $10,000 worth of stolen property, a misdemeanor charge for $1,000 or less stolen property, and a misdemeanor charge for possession of marijuana. Wow, didn't see that coming.
Yeah, be sure to throw that one in there. That's important.
A few days prior to his arrest, Harris published approximately 40 minutes of Starfield gameplay footage on his YouTube channel. While Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax, did its best to contain the leak, the original video and shorter clips were widely circulated online. Harris later tweeted a video review of the game stating, "I ain't mad. I know what happens. The game's smooth. For all the gamers out there who want a different kind of game, this is definitely something to get." It's alleged that Harris was responsible for uploading listings for multiple copies of the game, including its $300 Constellation edition, to the Japanese e-commerce platform Mercari. How he managed to obtain copies of the game prior to its official release is unclear. Starfield was originally scheduled to be released last November, but in May of 2022, the game was delayed to the first half of 2023. Bethesda announced a further delay this March, with Starfield now set to release on September 6th.
How could you be that dumb?
I don't know. Well, yeah.
I mean, unless you were somehow just completely missed what happened to the GTA 6 leaker. He's getting hit with a felony charge and a misdemeanor charge, but it seems really, really light considering.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if ZeniMax is not later going to file more charges or even sue him.
Right, like civil charges, if you will. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because like, there's no way this is their biggest game in a decade, and there's no way they just let this slide for $10,000 worth of stolen property felony charge.
Nope.
To them, that's worth so much more than that.
The worst part for Darren here is that he's not going to be able to continue to play the game because he's going to be in jail.
Right. It's like a 400-hour game and he played 40 minutes worth. I ain't mad. I know what happens.
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
It's cool. I like it, man.
I am curious as to how he got his hands on this, though. The guy lives in Tennessee. He doesn't live in major metropolitan area where you could go into a vault and steal these things. So
Are they kept in vaults?
I assume so, right? They've got it like a vault with a big door and everything, right?
So like Ocean's 11,
yes.
But they're breaking in and then they're stealing copies of Starfield.
That would be an amazing movie, and I would watch that 100 times. I would go back to the theater and watch it again.
Oh, okay. I'm going to jot that down in the journal for later.
All of a sudden, Blue's like, yeah, guys, I can't do the podcast anymore. I'm officially a writer for this Starfield movie.
So it's like the Tetris movie was like a Cold War thriller. And so the Starfield movie will not actually be about Starfield. It'll be about the heist to get the pre-release copies of Starfield.
All I want to know is Don Cheadle going to be in this movie? Don Cheadle with a British accent.
Well, yeah, or an Australian accent.
Yeah.
It can't be his normal accent.
No. It has to be the character he played in the Ocean series. If this is a spin-off, I would totally watch this with Don Cheadle.
It's like Cheetos 11, right?
Cheetos 11.
Cheetos, thank you.
Cheetos, okay.
Either way, I like it.
Dangerously cheesy.
Yeah.
But Cheetos 11, right? He gets his own crew now. This kind of reminds me of the movie Fanboys, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Yeah, but this is our Fanboys. This is the video game version. I'm totally cool with that. Let's do it.
So which one of you is dying of an incurable disease that is the motivator for the plot to move forward?
I volunteer as trivia.
Okay, but you have to die at the end.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's okay because you ain't mad. You know what happens.
From GameSpot, Starfield doesn't even really get going until you finish the main quest, says Pete Hines. In an interview ahead of Starfield's release, Pete Hines, head of publishing at Bethesda, relates a conversation he had with Todd Howard when he was about 80 hours into the game and hadn't even started doing the main quest. After Howard insisted he had to get into the main storyline because Starfield doesn't really even get going until you finish the main quest, Hines spent the next 50 hours just doing that, with Starfield's expansive galaxy offering dedicated players hundreds and maybe even thousands of hours of potential playtime. The message here is not to leave the main quest until last, as completionist players may be tempted to do. Hines has shared other advice for players looking to get the most out of the intimidatingly large RPG, previously telling players not to ignore the activity log. That's not to say there's one recommended way to play Starfield. Hines noted that everyone's first 40 hours in the game will look completely different, depending on what paths they decide to follow. Starfield will release on September 6th for Xbox Series X and S and PC, and preloading is also live now on Xbox and PC for anyone who wants to get ahead on the game's massive file size.
When Pete Hines was 80 hours into the game and hadn't even started the main quest, I was like, were you watching how I play Zelda? Because that's totally how I play big open world games. Is anything to do with the main quest, I avoid it like the plague and run around and do literally anything else and only return to the main quest when I have to. And that came back to bite me in the butt with Tears of the Kingdom because you don't get Link's glider right away. You have to follow the main quest for a little while before you get the glider, and I didn't. So I did spend like 20 hours running around and having everything be way more difficult than it needed to be because I didn't have the freaking glider. So I think it's good that they're putting this out into the world saying, no, you really should finish the main quest because otherwise there are so many people just like me who wouldn't do it.
Why do you think it is that you do that you don't attack the main quest right away?
By the way, Donnie's going to charge you $200 an hour for this therapy session.
Well, I suppose it all stems back to my childhood. I don't know. I suppose part of it is wanting to make sure that certain things don't become unavailable as the quest moves forward, which happens sometimes with some games. Or it's just I don't like being told how I should play something. I want to do it my way. That's certainly part of it.
Okay.
I'm sure everybody has their own reasons. Other main quest avoiders have their own reasons for why they do it.
I'm like that with like RPGs in general. So even if it's like a turn-based RPG, or even a retro RPG, I'll like grind for hours at the beginning of the game, even though it probably would be more efficient to just play through it and then grind at certain areas. I'm like, I want to be at level 20 by the first time I go to the main
yeah. The very first boss is level 4. I want to be level 20 so I can blow on it and have it fall down.
Which is a great strategy.
The best part about that is that when it's time to do the main quest, you're just like, yep, done.
I did that when I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I did everything but the main quest. And at one of the points when I was sailing around on my ship, I happened to accidentally wander into a quest that was part of the main quest. So if these little ships are attacking me, they're like at a level 9, and my ship is like level 80 or something. And I'm just kind of looking at them like you would look at a gnat buzzing around your head. I was like, what is this thing doing? Literally, I just kind of turned the ship a little bit and bumped them, and they sank.
I'm too powerful for you.
It's like the blue slimes from Dragon Quest, except they don't run away.
Right.
Right. I'm sure that was the way the developers intended for it to be done.
It's strange, though. It doesn't even get going until you finish the main quest. That's a strange way of putting it. Like, the game kind of sucks until you finish the quest, and then just go. Do whatever you want. It's going to be great.
Well, they don't specifically say that the game sucks.
But then when I hear somebody say the game doesn't get going, it's like, oh, that must mean that it's a slow burn, that, you know, you're going to spend all this hour doing crappy dialogue, and like it's not going to get interesting until that point. So like Suikoden games are like that.
Well, I could see it being like a case of we've filled this game with so much lore that if you don't follow the main quest and learn what we're talking about, then it won't mean as much to you.
That's probably true, yeah.
Or, you know, something like that. But I guess we'll have to play and find out.
And I'm excited for this. The fact that it's so expansive and there's so much to do. Slightly daunting in that sense. But
the way you said that, it's expansive. It sounded like a southern way of saying expensive.
It's so very expansive. But yeah. F***ing train. And I lost my train of thought, you motherfucker.
No, you didn't. It's right there.
It's honking at you, literally.
You
You loved it.
A little bit.
All right. From Sports Illustrated, Starfield's player character was initially going to be voiced. While getting an early hands-on session with the game, GQ's Sam White had the chance to talk with Todd Howard about the game and got some very interesting tidbits. One of the big appeals in Bethesda games is the role-playing opportunity, and Starfield has many systems that lean into that. Alongside a teaser of a unique twist on New Game Plus, White learned that the game's player character was originally intended to be voiced, like in Fallout 4. Fallout 4's voiced player character was a controversial move. It made conversations and dialogue more engaging, but many players didn't appreciate their identity being so heavily scripted, especially as there was only one voice option for each playable gender. Plus, Fallout 4's vague dialogue tree often led the character to say things the player may not agree with. The team behind Starfield originally hoped to iterate on this idea in Starfield and even got as far as recording some dialogue for the player character. But in the end, the decision was made to scrap it and have the character be mute. Now, much like in Skyrim and Fallout 3 before it, every reply you can give is written out in its entirety for you during conversations. According to the team, this decision was made because having a preset voice and intonation took too much from role-playing whoever you want to be. The team is pushing for players to have more control over their character in Starfield, and this is just one of the ways that's coming to fruition.
I appreciate when games do this. I appreciate when games do not have the main character voiced. I think kind of what to their point was the immersion is lost when you hear somebody else's voice coming through. At least for me, that's my opinion. Like, so Zelda never talks. Or I'm sorry, Link. I'm sorry. I caught myself. Okay.
Not until
You're
afterwards.
Get crucified.
I caught myself. Okay.
Nope, we're pulling that card, sir.
No one corrected me. There was no actually. I figured it out. But Link doesn't talk. And he's the
Nothing to see here. Please disperse.
God, I hate you guys.
Kisses, baby.
But clearly Link never talks, and because of that, you can kind of put yourself in his shoes as you play. And then, games like, again, they mentioned Fallout and Skyrim, those are great opportunities, especially when you can really customize the character to your liking. I like that. I think this is a smart move. I can understand why they would want to bring in voice talent, because, of course, it can help keep the dialogue kind of flowing. There's not so much stoppage, I would say, necessarily, but as far as a complete immersion, this is exactly what I want.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the game itself. Like if you're playing a game like Ghost of Tsushima or Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you're actually playing a specific character, you're playing Jin Sakai, you're playing Cassandra.
Right.
I really liked the voice acting in those games because I think it was way more immersive to have that performance behind the character and really brought the character even more to life. But in games like they're describing here, where you can be anybody you want to be, then yeah, it's kind of it doesn't feel right. You're like, I wouldn't say it that way, or I wish the voice didn't sound like this. All those kinds of reasons why you wouldn't want to do it in a true role playing game. And I guess where those two things kind of came to head was in Cyberpunk 2077. Because in Cyberpunk, it was billed so much before the game released as you can be whoever you want to be. Mm-hmm. And then the game came out and it's like, well, you really can't. You have some limited options, but you're playing V and you get to be V and V is voiced. And to me, it was like, that just didn't fit my expectations. Maybe if they had been a little clearer in the pre-marketing, like you really can't be whoever you want to be.
Right.
I didn't like it in Cyberpunk. I wanted it to be different.
And to your point, one of the things that was interesting about Cyberpunk is it was based off a tabletop game. And that tabletop game, of course, made it so that it was completely customizable to you. You were playing this one character that was going through it. And at that level, if you weren't going to do that with the game and it was going to be one character, what you really should have done is marketed the hell out of the fact that it's V and V is going to be the one, and mm-hmm. constantly talking about how she is the protagonist of this game to prevent you from having that experience. But they still wanted to bring people in that were like, hey, it's going to be just like the tabletop RPG.
Right. Setting the proper player expectations. That's all we're saying.
They did a great job with all of that, by the way. I think if you wanted to truly do it well, you would record several different dialogues, make it like, Microsoft Sam and all the choices that you have for it. Only problem with that is that this game seems to be huge. And so you would have to have that, like, let's say 10 people record the full dialogue of the game. I'd imagine that would get a little expensive.
Yeah, expensive, and the file size probably would be ungodly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's already ungodly. So here's what you do. You get an AI that comes along with the game, and then the player just programs in what kind of voice they want for the character. Like, I want blue sick voice for this character.
Ooh, there you go.
Hey guys. Hey guys.
Are those Marlboro Reds?
Ready to play Starfield.
All right, before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast. The show explores the history of video games through the stories and experiences of the people who lived it. Join host Bill Tucker, along with a rotating cast of friends, family, podcasters, journalists, and anybody with a story to tell, as they go beyond the bits and the bytes to share personal recollections of the last 30 years of gaming. September is going to be Earthbound month on A Gamer Looks at 40, and the first episode drops Monday. So this week's question is, do you own a complete in-box copy of Earthbound? And if not, what lengths would you go to get one? Would you trade something, do an embarrassing stunt, etc.? If you want to show off your copy of Earthbound or share the embarrassing thing you do to get one, reply to the pinned tweet at A Gamer Looks at 40 on Twitter.
And I will remind you, too, that they should probably be legal things that you would do.
Yeah.
There are very subtle levels of legality, I would say.
It's a big old gray area.
Are we talking misdemeanor or felony level?
I suppose that's up to you.
Yeah, because Donnie can handle county jail.
It's not his first time.
Moving on.
Hey, Donnie. I could be a friend to you.
I could eat a fig Newton for hours.
So I have a copy of the game, and I have a copy of the book that comes with it. I am missing the box. So I would be happy to drive over to Davey's house when he's not home and sneak into his to his basement and just lift the box. I'd leave the game in the manual. He can keep those. I just want the box.
Do you think he would be able to spot it almost instantly that it was gone?
Instantly. Yes. So what I would do is I would put like 2 little Hershey's Kisses right there for him. Just like that.
It'd be like a Star Wars. I just felt a disturbance.
Right on it. Kisses, baby.
I could probably be persuaded to do some sort of stunt, like a Japanese game show level stunt.
Like an MXC?
Yeah, like an MXC, or maybe something like, you remember that show Fear Factor?
Yes.
Yeah, I could probably do something like that.
But me and Donnie get to pick what it is.
Yes.
How confident are you now?
Went from 100% confident to about 7% confident.
Bring out the oysters.
No. Can't you have the weird cave spiders instead? I don't have to be oysters.
I gotta say, as long as it's not like a MacGruber level thing where I'm walking around naked with a celery stalk stuck in between my butt cheeks, I'd probably do the stunt.
So nothing like last Saturday.
I thought we agreed not to talk about that.
Sorry. My bad. How do I transition to a gaming history 101 now?
There's no smooth way to do it. You just have to plow through.
Well, thank you for coming, students. Please take your seats. Welcome back to Professor Rybred's Gaming History 101. In today's lesson, we're going to take a little deviation from the formula. I'm going to be covering my top 5 favorite women in history of video games industry. Now, remember, this is my top 5. It doesn't match your top 5. Well, tell me about it on Twitter at Retro Game Brews. And if it makes you mad, well, piss up a rope. Starting out the list at number 5, Sasha Scarlett Hostin, a.k.a. the Queen of StarCraft 2. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I think of professional esports players, think of a group of either sweaty, neck-bearded tryhards or nerdy teenage boys. Sasha, of course, though, broke into this space that is predominantly dominated by males. She got her official start professionally in 2012, where she shocked the field and placed among the world's top players of StarCraft 2. She has dabbled in a few games throughout her career, including Dota and Overwatch, and even represented her home country playing for Team Canada in the Overwatch World Cup. Now, Hostin's influence extends beyond her gameplay. She's an advocate for diversity and inclusion in esports, actively championing equal opportunities for women. Her journey not only underscores her remarkable achievements, but also highlights the importance of representation in a field where diversity has been lacking. By pushing boundaries and defying stereotypes, Sasha has become a beacon of empowerment, leaving an enduring legacy that continues to shape and redefine esports today. Now let's discuss number 4, Risa Tabata. Risa Tabata was born in Japan on December 15, 1985, which is a widely known fact that all the best people were born that year.
Okay.
Moving on. Risa is a storyteller and an innovator, which made her a perfect fit to join Square Enix in 2007. She quickly rose to prominence at Square Enix for her work as a key developer for the popular Dragon Quest series. Started off as a monster designer for Dragon Quest IX, a battle planner for the MMORPG that was Dragon Quest X, but really came into her own as a director of the widely popular and critical success that is Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of Elusive Age. She continued her work as the director for the enhanced and expanded version of Dragon Quest XI called Dragon Quest XI-S. She is one of my favorites because of the barriers that she's broken in a Japanese company. While things have certainly gotten better for women's rights in Japan in recent decades, Risa is still an example of what women can and should bring to the gaming industry. Coming in at number 3 is Kim Swift. Kim was born on May 17th, 1983 in the United States, where she would eventually attend DigiPen Institute of Technology in Redmond, Washington, where she studied computer science and graduated in 2005. During her final year at school, she worked for a project team on the revolutionary title they called Narbacular Drop, and presented it to Valve. Now, Valve was so impressed with the game that they hired her team immediately to finish it. While the game didn't end up being Narbacular Drop, you may know it by its considerably less syllabic name, Portal. Swift was involved with the game's sequel, which both games are widely considered to be some of the best ever made. Kim has gone on to work on many games, including Left 4 Dead, an early beta of Fortnite, The Misadventures of PB Winterbottom, which is the best name I've ever heard, Quantum Conundrum, Soul Fjord, and Tales of Neon Star. Like all women on this list, she's a trailblazer and happens to also be an expert of creative puzzles and innovative gameplay. Alpha number 2, Mabel Addis. Now, most of the women on this list are people who are directly involved in the gaming industry and have chosen that as their profession. But Mabel's a little different. She got involved with the gaming more by chance. Mabel was a school teacher for the 6th grade and wanted to provide her students with a better way to learn. So in the 1960s, she reached out to IBM to partner with them to make what is considered to be the first example of a computer-based game. They called it the Sumerian game. It was an educational simulation that tasked her students with raising a society in ancient Sumeria. Students would grow crops, livestock, deal with politics, and natural disasters. Think Oregon Trail, but before they had guns.
I'm sorry, what trail?
Oregon Trail.
Mhm.
I hate you.
I know.
Think Oregon Trail, but before they had guns. Her involvement in the development of the game makes her not only the first example of a female developer, but also the first people to develop a computer game for a computer system. There isn't much more to know about Mabel that I could find, and trust me, I looked, but her contributions to the gaming space and to women in STEM cannot be understated. Now, before we talk about number 1, let's do some quick honorable mentions. Our first is Donna Bailey. She was the first female programmer to work in the Atari coin-op department and the first woman to create an arcade game. Rebecca Heineman. OG fans of the show might remember her. She was the first esports video game champion and creator of the company Interplay. Roberta Williams, developer of Sierra, and helped pioneer the point-and-click adventure game with such titles as King's Quest, Space Quest, and Quest for Glory, to name a few.
That's your honorable mention? Wow.
What?
Instead of your number 1.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm going to pen a stern
This is
response to
my
you on
list.
Twitter. I'm going to pen a stern response to you on Twitter.
There's a rope for you, Donnie.
Is it already pissed on? Because I don't want to.
Probably. Okay. We haven't released this and it's already been pissed on. And lastly is Bonnie Ross, developer of for Microsoft, working on such titles as Gears of War, Mass Effect, and helped found 343 Industries while she developed Halo. So that leaves us with our number 1, Carol Shaw. Carol was born in 1955 and was one of the first female game developers. Working for Atari at the time, which was known to be a bit of a boys' club and an animal house, parties, drugs, and much more were commonplace at Atari, and of course was led by their eccentric boss, Nolan Bilsnow.
Was led by their long boss. Eccentric boss.
I had a different word that I chose not to use. Shaw was known to be able to traverse the sophomoric BS and develop some absolute classics for the system, including 3D tic-tac-toe, video checkers, and the stone-cold classic River Raid. River Raid, in particular, was extremely innovative for the time, including novel gameplay, dynamic scrolling, and challenging game mechanics. Carol was also one of the developers that took a stand for developers getting credit for their games when she left Atari to join Activision. She established a legacy of hard work, innovation, and perseverance that provided a role model for all women, past, present, and future, in the gaming space. So to wrap things up, obviously women have significantly impacted the game industry, breaking barriers, designing characters, leading development, and advocating for diversity, fostering creativity and inclusivity across gaming's evolution. So we salute you.
We salute you.
For those women about to game. So thank you for attending today's Gaming History 101. Just a reminder, if you have any ideas for a story you'd like to hear, send us a message at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature your suggestion.
All right, thanks, Professor. Let's go ahead and wrap up this episode for this evening. Thank you for listening to episode 88 of Gamers Week Podcast, and a big thank you to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Love Retro BTW, and A Gamer Looks at 40 Podcast for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. Or join us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamersweek. And finally, since you made it all the way to the end of this episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice.
So, polygon, hexagon, octagon, pentagon, Oregon?
Oregon?
Oregon.
Oregon, San Pellegrino, and jalapenos.
I like the guttural ha, and that was nice. That was a nice touch.
The jalapenos. All right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
This is Artificial Intelligence, Humphrey Bogart. Thank you for listening to Gamers Week Podcast. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, patrons with benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VDSTDs things, right? Make it fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
that was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.